Welcome to Eye on the Illini. This is Mike Cagley here with Brad Sturdy, Kedrick Prince. Massive win for the Fighting Illini here in April with, they're probably a month ahead of where they were last year in the off season. Brad, talk to us a little bit about what this Portal Combat win is. Obviously, we talk about Mr. Stojakovic and also what he brings to the table and what this means for the Fighting Illini.
You heard what he said. He feels like that Brad Underwood told him that he was one of the missing pieces to a team that they think can contend for a national title, Final Four, whatever that is. And I think you've seen them move up in the analytics rankings up to a top 15 pretty consistently in all of them. I've seen some of them in the top 10. And I think that he is the guy that they needed because he is a scorer who can create. They can use him in ball screens. They can use him in booty ball. They can use him in isolations. Basically, however you want to do, you can run him off screens. He can be a spot-up shooter. You can play him where all different locations, and he can be extremely effective. Playing with better players, the thought is that he's going to become even more efficient. And I would say this. I would say that this is the guy who is going to be I don't think there's much doubt that he's going to be the leading scorer on this team. I think that's what's going to happen. I think Tomislav probably be second, and he'll be the leading scorer. And then all those other guys will fill in around. I think Boswell's going to have a good year, and I think they'll have a good year out of – I don't know if you saw today, Petrovic hit the game-winning shot in his game against Merkovic's team over in Europe, and Petrovic has consistently been doing that, hitting game winners. So I think you get a guy like that, but he's more of a guy who wants to create for others. He had 7 more assists today. He still scored 16, but you put these guys together, and you've got a lot of pieces. You got ball handling at multiple positions. You got the Swiss Army knife and Ty Rodgers, play anywhere 1 to 4, defend all those positions. You got depth up front, which is something they didn't have. And also, the people are like, we need one more guard. We got to have another guard. You have 2 guards coming in who are both pretty good. And if they're limited to coming off the bench and filling a role, I think freshmen, that's the role they need. And that's where they need to use them, is get them some minutes coming off the bench, whether it's Wagler shooting, whether it's Brandon Lee being more of a scorer. And so I think those guys can both do those things and help next season. But Stojakovic is the piece because he is he's a ball dominant guy. He can be a high usage guy, can get a really high usage rate. But also you put him with good players. You can't sell out and take him away. He will. And the other thing about him is, I'll tell you, he gets to the rim and he gets to the line. He is constantly, I think he took, as a wing, he took 30% of his shots at the rim. And that's a lot for a guy who's slashing like that. So, yeah, I think he's the key piece. In Illinois, he was the guy they wanted from the minute the portal opened. He was the guy they wanted. And that's why we knew when he entered that they were going to go hard after him.
I'm glad, Brad, you're right. As soon as he entered the portal, he was the guy that I wanted. There was rumors about him going into the portal a while earlier, but he was the guy that I thought, and I still do think he was the missing piece. And I know Brad Underwood had to do his job to sell to him to say, hey, this is what we need. You're the guy. Show him how he fits into the program. I feel bad for Cal because he had a great year there, but the pieces just weren't there for him. And I was hearing you talk about, before I came on the air, I was thinking, what does this roster need right now? What do they really and truly need? And me personally, going into it, I thought they need a mid-major guard who's just a flamethrower, guys who can just really shoot the basketball. But then you think about Brandon Lee and Keaton Wagler, they need minutes. I was doing a debate with another media member here locally, and he wasn't being negative, but he was saying, hey, why would you come to Illinois if you're a freshman? And why would you play there? And then he asked me who was the last player to ever play 4 years at Illinois. And by the way, it was Coleman Hawkins because he did. Then Brad Underwood, like Kentucky and everybody else, you want to put a roster together where you can get one-and-done guys, because when you can get one-and-done guys, then you're going to be able to attract higher and better recruits. And they've done that. So this was the missing piece. I was excited about it. Anybody who reads our message boards, they're fully aware. For the people who don't, just want to get on Twitter and just say, hey, what do you mean? We've been talking about this guy for a long time, and Illinois did their job to sell him. I put a couple of videos out there. I just love watching his game. And when I try to envision him, what he does with Ivisic, Tommy, Ivicic and Kylan Boswell. I just think they're going to be really dynamic, and he can score. When we talk about 3-level scores, there's some guys that's good at it, but he's good at all three. And Brad, you mentioned the last podcast I was on with you, I expect his 3-point percentage to go up a lot because he will have a lot of open looks. A lot of them won't be contested like he had at Cal, because now he's that alpha dog at Illinois, but there's so many weapons around him.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. You look at, we talk so much about fit for a team, but we also have to think about fit for a player. And here he's coming to a place where, for the first time, he's not the guy who has every bit of the world's weight on his shoulders. It's got to be nice when you've got a 7-foot center who can hit the three and pass that's on your team. You've got a guy who's like Kylan Boswell, who's proved himself in 2 of the tougher conferences in the country. And you've got all this additional talent around him. I think we may see a more lethal Stojakovic than what we saw last year. And he had a pretty good season last season. Brad, one of the things that I think is also interesting, I guess, that I always wanted to look at is Illinois now beat Duke, sniffed around on this guy, North Carolina. Okay, Stanford, but nobody cares about that. But Illinois is beating some of the blue bloods now all of a sudden with 6 years of winning and going to the NCAA tourney. If it hadn't been for COVID, would have been a really nice streak. Illinois is now starting to compete at the highest level. And I think you got to give credit to Brad Underwood. And I think you got to give credit for Josh Whitman harnessing the NIL resources that Illinois has as well.
No question. I think this is huge. This is the kind of thing that Illinois often been called a sleeping giant, right? They're not asleep anymore. They're recruiting with the big boys, whether it's Kentucky or Duke or Florida, North Carolina, whoever it is. You're beating teams like that, you're doing something right. And I think Brad Underwood deserves a lot of credit. He's done a great job. And the one thing I like about Brad Underwood, a lot of people criticize this, that, or the other, but I'm telling you what, he's so adaptable. Like okay, I don't get this guy, so I'm going to go get guys in Europe. Okay. So he goes and gets Merkovich, and he goes and gets Petrovic, and he went and got Yakachonis, and you got Will Riley. I know he's Canada, but still, I'm going to go get guys that fit. I'm going to get Ivicic. I'm going to get the other Ivicic. I'm going to have Zvonimir, and Tomislav. And so I think that's what I like about him, is adaptable. He has, of course, I don't know if you saw his Twitter. Did you see his Twitter today, by the way, when he put a picture of him? It was funny. So I actually texted him a picture, and he said, yeah, there's a lot of them out there. And so there's all kinds of them, the stories from the Eastern Bloc here. But yeah, the Balkan, what are we calling them? The Balkan what?
I think they're the Fighting Illyrians myself, but I'm a history buff. Most people don't even care. They're like, what the heck are you talking about?
What's an Illyrian?
Yeah, exactly. And if you don't know that, then gosh darn it, go look it up.
Yeah. No, but it's pretty cool. He's done a great job of making this program relevant again. And I know they only made the second round last year, but coming off Elite 8, then a second round, you're consistently a top 25 team. Now the question, can they become consistently a top 15, top 10 team every year? I think this is a team has a chance. And obviously they have the NIL behind them now, and they spent well in the portal, and they have retention too. The other thing about this is what I like about this group is they have this retention. They can keep the culture. And it's one of those things like, Orlando Antigua, assistant, told me this a couple weeks ago. He said, the culture changes you. You don't change the culture. I think that's a really important part of this process and what they do by having guys that have been in there, whether it's Tomislav or it's Boswell or it's Ty Rogers. I think that's huge.
I'll tell you, from me, to be honest with you, Brad, you're 100% right. The way he adapts to the change, and I tell you, he's a trendsetter, is what he really is. I remember when the portal first started opening up, and people, and especially in the Big Ten, they were hesitant on going out and getting players. Brad took that junior college route mentality and just went out and got kids. And it's, a lot of people don't like it, but now everybody is. And Mike, to answer your question, it's easy for people to focus on the negative when you lose a kid, or if a kid mentions Illinois and then the kid ends up going somewhere else. there's not enough words can be said about this question. You look at Illinois' basketball roster in the last 3 years. The last 3 years alone. I'll use Terrence Shannon Jr., and I put this on our message board. People really just assumed he was going to come back to Illinois his senior year. North Carolina was pushing. North Carolina was pushing hard for him to go to North Carolina, and he stayed in Champaign. We look at a guy like Will Riley. Will Riley could have went to Arkansas, could have went to Kentucky, could have went to Michigan. He could have went to a lot of places. Illinois beat those kids. Now, excuse me, they beat those teams. Excuse me. That sounds pretty bad. They beat those teams. Now, on the other side of it, Mike, let's just look at the football program as well. You can say the same thing. They've beaten some of the tough teams in college football to land players. Shauna Green has done the exact same thing. So Illinois is now, it's a really attractive place. You're not going to win every recruit. But, Mike, the one thing we agree on, when I look at these recruits now, I can look at a 4-star, 5-star, whatever. I'm literally looking at who else is recruiting this guy? Why do they want this kid? And I don't know if all of you have Twitter or not, but if you've seen some of the message boards, like the North Carolina fans, they're upset that they lost a kid to Illinois. But see, they don't think that should happen. But if you're an Illinois fan, you know the success that's happened. They're putting guys in the NBA now, which is one of the reasons why they got Andre, because he wants to play in the NBA like his father. Illinois has done that. So all these other schools who fan bases want to argue and get upset with each other, Illinois is not going anywhere. They're not, and they're going to adapt regardless of what coach or what program it is. They're going to. So to get a guy like this to go over and beat North Carolina, Mike, you mentioned Duke snooping around. I think some of those schools started snooping around, but they figured out they were not. Why would he go to Duke to beat another guy when he could come to Illinois and be the alpha? And then they have proven that they will let you be who you are. Io got to be who he was. Domas got to be who he was. Terrence Shannon got to be that. And Coleman Hawkins. So it's in a good place. And if the NCAA make changes, I can assure you Brad Underwood, he will adjust to it.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think it's funny because he tends to maybe go a little too far reactionary if he sees something. I have to be positionless, and then the next year I need to do this. But he also is very willing to readjust his team and look at the situation around and decide, okay, this is how we're going to construct a team. I think that's really important. It shows that flexibility. When we look at what Stojakovic has to offer, I love the idea we got now a wing scorer. He gets buckets from all three levels. He plays 2 or 3, but can also be a primary ball handler if you need him to. And he has opportunities to keep improving his three-point shot and even improve himself as a defender. So not only is he a very good player, but he's got the capacity to grow. And I would think some of the training with Fletch coupled with just getting into the higher level in the Big Ten offers him an opportunity that he has to look forward to. And I'm assuming that's what his father was also here to find out about as he figured out the calculus and where his son was going to go. Any thoughts on that, Brad?
I think that was a big part of it, understanding how you fit your role. And I think Peja spent a lot of time talking with Brad and the staff and just going, hey, how are you going to use him? What plays are we going to use here? What system are we going to use where he fits? And I think that's going to be, I think that's part of this process was him understanding how he fits within the Illinois system. And I think that's why they also love they love the campus. And when you go to Ubben, if your recruit gets to go to Ubben, it's NBA level like facility, right? And so practice facility, training facility. So when you get to go that, and Peja knows that. So getting that, finding out what system he's going to be used, how he's going to be used. I think all of that is part of this, how he's such a great fit for Illinois. And having a dad who has been through it, played at the highest level you can play at, I think really helps a kid make an informed decision. And I think this is really where Brad Underwood is so good in portal recruiting and these things, because I think that he is really good at, maybe he's not good with the BS type stuff when it's high school recruiting, these young guys going through this is like just transactional. Here's how we're going to use you. Here's how you fit. Here's what we can do with you. Here's how we can get you to the next level. It's just like actually selling a vision, but selling it doesn't have to be all the hype and BS. And I think that's where Brad fits because he's a no nonsense, no BS kind of guy.
I'll tell you, for me, I look at the NBA route. I know Pedro wants his son to play in the NBA. That was a big part of it. Everybody knows about the meeting because I don't know how it leaked out, but it leaked out how the meetings went, and he got along with some of the players, with all the players. Excuse me. I want to give kudos to the fans because I can tell you right now, and Brad talks to the coaches just like I do, and I'm going to tell you, the fan support in Champaign is huge. You guys will be surprised what the kids will say to me or to Brad or to the coaches. The other players sell it. I remember talking to one of the kids who transferred out. I'll say his name is Javon Gibbs Longhorn. That's the one thing he's going to miss, the Orange Crush and how loud it gets in the State Farm Center. So his dad was able to see all of that, to look at the guys in the NBA and to know that Illinois can prepare them. And also, we cannot leave out Adam Fletcher because I guarantee it, his body will change just like it always does. Not that it matters what I think, but personally, this is me. I'm more excited about this roster than I was last year's roster. And I don't know if that's a bad thing to say or not, but I really am. I like this roster. To me, is more proven. They're older guys that think about it, when they lost to Kentucky, we all said that, gosh, you got to get older, you got to get older. And it was no knock against the KJ and Will Riley, and it was Tommy's first year, and it was Ben Humrichhausen's first year. But when you're older and you've been there, there's nothing that Andre is going to be surprised about. There's nothing that any of these kids are going to be thinking, hey, okay, I don't know if I can do this or not, because when you're older, it's different. Zonomir, he's played at Kentucky and then he was at Arkansas. So there's nothing that's going to surprise these kids. I like the fact that they're older. That was huge. And I think this will be a better shooting team, which is one of the reasons I'm excited. I just like guys that can put the ball in the basket. I know that's the direction Illinois is going. They're going to be a tough matchup. And I'm going to throw this out there, and this is probably going to be one of the worst, best takes ever. I think what I'm looking at with the Big Ten, with Purdue, Illinois, Michigan, UCLA, and Wisconsin, I think you're going to get one of those teams in the Final Four to have a legitimate shot at a national title next year. I really believe that. The NIL and the way the recruiting is going, the Big Ten took a step back last year, but I think they picked up their game, and you're going to see a really competitive Big Ten this year. Really competitive. And I didn't even mention Washington. So there's going to be some teams out there now. You have a bad night, which Coach Underwood used to say, you're really going to pay the price next year because there's teams out there that really did well in the portal.
Yeah, we've seen Purdue do very well, and we've also seen, obviously, Illinois do very well. Michigan looks good, although Mr. Sturdy has repeatedly warned people that one of the guys that they're depending on may not be there next year. Their portal combat win may dissipate in the air in front of him.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing. Like you look at this, we talk about portal combat. That's one reason why Illinois was a little concerned about Ademe Sarr, because he wants to go through the draft process. If he goes to the draft, then you banked on him, and then he doesn't come. Yaxel Lindenborg has said he's 80% going to the NBA, like exact quote. He said, I'm 80% going to NBA. And so obviously that's where he wants to be. He's mocked as a first rounder in most places. We'll see. I even talked to some Michigan guys. They expect him to end up, they're not sure he's going to come. They expect him not to be at Illinois. So I think that's going to be very interesting to see what happens there. Purdue obviously did well. Much like we have with Tomislav and Zvonimir, how do they fit together when they're playing together? How do Kluff and Trey Kaufman-Renn fit together playing up front? Are they going to be able to guard a couple of athletic guys, athletic four-man, something like that? I don't know. So it's going to be interesting. A lot of these teams have, even though they have lots of amassed talent, how do they fit together, I think, becomes the question. I like the guard they brought in at Purdue. He's a guy, he can shoot it, but he's going to play. Braden Smith's going to have the ball in his hands most of the time. So how does he fit? Is he comfortable playing off the ball? Obviously, you've got the big three, which are keys. They've added a couple guys with Mayer and Clough around them. I think those guys will, now that they have the depth. Matt's been really good at using guys to fill that depth. USC gets a big addition today. They're going to be better. UCLA should be good. Big Ten's good. Indiana's much improved. I think, honestly, surprise team for me. Iowa is still going to be extremely
A tough out.
skilled.
A tough out.
They're going to score, but they will guard. They will play a different style. They will make sure they can guard because although Fran scored a lot, they didn't really work defense. They will guard better than they did. Now the question becomes, do they have enough on the interior to handle that? Do they have the athleticism maybe? But adding Hausen, adding Bennett Sturts, obviously a really good player. Lots of talent on these teams in the Big Ten. Obviously, Wisconsin was really good last year. They lost some people, but it's going to be interesting.
I'm going to tell you two guys that really impressed me. When I said that I like the roster, David Merkovic, that's a big fella. That guy, to me, is a sleeper. I think and you talk about being big. Illinois can go 2 7-foot guys, and David is 6'9", and then you got Ben-Hum Rickhouse who's 6'9", and all three of those guys can shoot it. And David, to me, is just that physical piece that they've missed. Now, another reason why I like this team is Milo Petrovic. I just think this kid, to me, is a shorter version of Kasparis. I've heard people say he doesn't finish as well. I thought he did from the film that I've seen. I think he's a gamer. I think he's tough. He's exactly what Illinois needs. I just think this roster right now is just built, and these guys are older. They're not really young. We've already talked about Andre and Zonomir. But my thing is those two guys, David and Milo, you really cannot underestimate what I think they can bring to the table. And because of this time, when you look at the roster, it's full. And we've not talked about Ty Rodgers. Now, I'm going to throw it out there right now because I know how Coach Underwood has done things in the past. If people think Ty Rodgers came back to Illinois to be the 10th, 11th guy, he's going to play. What spot, I couldn't tell you, but he's a guy that's going to be on the floor because what he does, he will go get those offensive rebounds that Marez Johnson used to get all the time that people talked about. You're going to get that from him. You're going to get that from David as well. So you're not missing anything. And Marez he's a junior. He's older. I do expect to see him shoot the ball a little bit on the perimeter. But he's that one guy, that glue guy. And I'll tell you what, with Tommy's passing ability, I really like to see bad choice of words, Ty Rodgers in this offense, because he could be that slasher that they have. And people are talking about being athletic on the wing. You have a guy. Just don't forget about the guys that are already there because of the new guys are coming on the roster. Because if you put a guy like Andre and Ty Rodgers on the floor at the same time, and Kylan Boswell, who I expect a big year from, I just really like this roster. This roster, to me, I'm really happy about. Last year, after watching them play, okay. And then until Will Riley. If Will Riley would have came on early and stayed on, I would have had the same feelings, but he came on late. But this roster, kid likes.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, I would say, can I add that with Ken? Yeah. Petrovic is really good. I watched a little bit today. That dude lives in the paint. He is so quick. People don't think he's athletic because he's not going to high fly dunk, but he gets in the paint. He lives in the paint. He sprays it, or he finishes with either hand. He's really good at that. I've been really impressed with his game, just getting to watch him more now lately. And I also think he's physical. He's strong. He's 22. 22-year-old kid. He's not an 18-year-old freshman coming in. And then you mentioned again another. I don't know what he had today. He had 13 points, 9 rebounds, or something like that. He's a really skilled kid. He's 6'9", 255 pounds. He's really good. So I agree with Ked. Those guys are really good. There's a lot of depth. Also with Ty Rodgers, I think the thing about Ty Rodgers, he's going to play 1, 2, 3, and 4. He's going to guard all 4 of those positions at different times. And can you imagine, you have a guy like Boswell, now you have another lockdown defender potentially in Ty Rodgers. And you add a guy like Stojakovic, who's an excellent shot blocker. And you can really play 4 guys who are interchangeable out there on the perimeter and have good size, good strength, and you don't get beat in mismatches. So I think the defense should be better than it was a year ago, hopefully.
Yeah. And after this quick break, we will talk a little bit about some concerns people might have about this roster. It's crunch time on the court, and the NBA playoffs are your chance to score big. Whether you're riding with favorites or cheering on the underdog, every three-pointer, dunk, and buzzer beater is an opportunity to win at MyBookie. Place your bets as the action unfolds. Feeling confident? Lock in your winnings early with the quick cash out option. Never miss your chance to turn basketball insights into cash. New to my bookie? Sign up today. Use promo code 50 and instantly boost your first deposit $50 and my bookie tosses in an extra 25. Deposit 100 and get a $50 bonus. More action, more excitement, and more chances to win during basketball's most intense playoff season. Plus, when the games wrap up, keep the winning alive at MyBookie's Casino. Slots, blackjack, roulette, and more. The thrills never stop. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere, only with MyBookie. So there you are, folks. I had actually one of my buddies try that. He won $1,100. I was like, goodness gracious. And of course, all he did was just did the opposite of what we talked about all day at work. So I was his secret to winning. So look, the one thing that we hear is, oh, this team isn't going to be athletic. And I guess when I look at Petrovic, I think he's pretty athletic. Stojakovic is athletic. You may not have like super quick guys, but the two Iviciches are 7 foot and 7'3" respectively. Ty Rogers is an athlete. So I guess to me, I don't know that this team is going to turn Illinois into Iowa overnight. But Brad, we hear this all the time. So I just thought you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I think they don't have any great athletes. I wouldn't say a guy that's crazy athletic on this team, but I don't think they're unathletic. I think that Boswell is such a good defender. I think Ty Rogers is extremely athletic. And I think Stojakovic is athletic enough. I think his big issue is I'm not sure he's ever been forced to guard. This sounds crazy. I don't think he's had to. Like, he blocks some shots, whatever, but you don't have to get down and guard people. And I do think they're going to be quicker. They're going to be they still have length. And I think a lot of these guys are going to be better than they were a year ago, too. Jake Davis will be better than he was a year ago. Ben Hummerkaus will be better. They're coming off the bench. These are guys that are going to be better than they were a year ago because of the experience of first time playing at this level. Now, the other thing about this, I do think that, like, Jake Davis can be a little bit like the kid who went to Iowa, Brendan Housen, who came from Kansas State. He can be that guy running off screens, catch and shoot, spot ups, things like that. I think that's where his role would be. That's where he fits. And very similar in that regard. I think Hummerkaus can be a good offensive rebounder. He's a guy who he's going to shoot a little better. I think it'll be more relaxed in like a smaller role. And having all these guys who can create and do things, I think will open things up for him. So I think that there is some athleticism. And how many people have athletic 7'2" centers? Athletic 7'2" centers are not in college basketball. They don't play there. So I think they've got the size and length up front. They can play some different guys. Merkovich isn't a high flyer again, but he's physical and he's tough, strong. And so you get him, he gets with Fletch, he's going to be even better. So yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. Yeah, Duke did have an athletic 7, and where's he going this year? He's going like 8th or 7th in the draft, right? So that's what happens. They play their year and they go to the NBA. So you don't get guys who come back a second year very often.
I think the athletic situation is unfair, to be honest with you. You look at the team that went to the Final Eight last year, the best athlete on the team was Terrence Shannon. They had one guy. They were good players on their team. No disrespect to Coleman Hawkins. He wasn't a great athlete. Marcus Domas wasn't a quote-unquote great athlete. The same thing can be said about Ayo Dosunmu. I think that's unfair. But if you want to look at athleticism, I do think Ty Rogers is athletic. I know he's athletic. Because he is not a three-point shooter or he hasn't launched a bunch of threes, I mean that he's not athletic enough. You want to put a team together that can put the ball in the basket, and you do want them to be able to guard. That is the one thing that I do want to see them be able to do differently this year. But one guy is not going to guard 5 people. It's just not going to happen. I see your comment, DS, and I'm sorry. I get it. I understand. But TJ was always guarding the best player. And I can assure you, Kylan Boswell, he's a little bit more athletic than what people give him credit for. And I know it's unfair to not give Milo credit because he can't dunk a basketball. That kid is quick as hell, and he can get by people like anybody else can. So I think there's some. I don't want to use that choice of words. That'll probably get me in trouble. I just think that people should be careful about the word athleticism and how they look at it, because if they can guard, keep people in front of them, and they can rebound and they can defend, which I think they're going to be. I know that's going to be a point of emphasis this year. We all know that what happened in the Kentucky game, that I would be very surprised if that happened again, because if you're not scoring, you got to be able to stop people. And this team right here, you can go look at the numbers. Illinois has led the Big Ten in scoring the last 2 years. Purdue will give them a run for their money, but I expect this team to be up in the higher 80s again.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think they're going to have some opportunities to prove people wrong. And I also think that there's an awful lot of defense and offense that gets taught by repetition. And that's really the difference in training from the Europeans and the Americans. Is the American system is roll the basketball out and play a boatload of games. And the European system is we're going to learn how to do this move with the least amount of dribbles and the least amount of steps so that we can take advantage of our form and how we do things. Brad, the other question is obviously people are fantastic at spending other people's money. I'm one of the best you've ever seen at spending the cap money for the Cowboys. What is there any more people that are going to be signed? Is this the conclusion of this off season? And then the final thing, I think maybe there is a piece that could be affordable later on. And then the final question is, and I know it's a little bit different, but I don't think there's a shot, and you know what, that Will Riley does not enter the NBA draft. But if he were to surprise the world, would Illinois find a way to welcome him back?
You would have to, but no, it's not gonna. I don't think they're gonna add anyone else. They paid, and people don't understand. Like they paid. Petrovic was not cheap. Petrovic cost a pretty penny because they really liked him as a ball handler and his ability to get in the paint. I don't know. I don't think. Yeah, I really don't think they're going to add anyone else. Some people, like I said, we talked about this earlier. I think they've got a top 15 as it is. Team maybe higher. Some people have had them in the top 10. Looking at analytics in the offseason, how they rate. But the one thing I will say is you also have two young guys who are going to can provide depth. And I think you got to play them. You essentially have 7 guys who can play the 3 perimeter spots. And people are like, we need an air ball handling guard. You have quite a few right now. And here's the reality. You're probably not going to play him anyway. But if Will Riley decides to come back, I don't see any way they don't take him. He can't go anywhere else. They're not going to say, sorry, Will, I know you're probably going to be a first-team All-American, but we're going to pass. You find a way to get him here, right? Because you do have roster spots open. And I could see them making an addition later. They've done that before where they see a guy who wants to reclass, something like that. Somebody flies open, their coaching change, something happens there, and you have somebody who wants to move. But I would say that's probably not likely.
I think it's April 28th. I think they're going to add someone else. There's just no way those fellas are going to be done. I do think it's a full roster. I agree. What that missing piece is, I don't know. We all have our opinions of what we want to see, but there's no way this group will be done. But the wild card is Will Riley. Even though I think he's 99.999% gone, there's no way I think he will leave the NBA. Everybody's seeing him in the first round because I think he's made his mind up and he's betting on himself. But if he came back this year, if he really came back this year with what this roster looks like right now, Illinois will definitely be a top 3 or 4 team in the country, without a doubt.
Yeah, and we want to say that his agency, Clutch Sports, is not one that usually steers guys back to college. There's a chance, you never know, but I don't know that I would jump too much on that. And I know that it sounds, as we look at things, of course, Jason's question, Illini top 25, Brad said top 15, maybe higher. And I'm not certain you can crean somebody to pick up some cash. I think probably if you're going to crean somebody, you got to pay them and then crean them. So that makes creaning much less painful than it used to be in the past. And I see Boogie in there. I'm not certain that we're going to see Boogie necessarily coming our way, but who knows? Any other thoughts on what happened today? Because I do think it's really meaningful that you can compete with North Carolina, Duke, and those types for players, because that's who you're going to be playing at the end of the year, at least Duke, when it comes down to trying to get through the tournament. Being able to deal with these people, with Florida, I think that's a key victory that we don't really think about because it's not on the court.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think a lot of people talk about this team does this and this team does that. But I think the other part about this, Illinois has to, if you're not competing with those teams in recruiting, it's going to be very hard to beat them. You go back to when Illinois was Final Four good, 2005. Think about the schools. They got some guys who are under the radar, but they beat Michigan State for D. Brown. They beat kind of North Carolina for Darren Williams because they took Raymond Felton, but they backed into it. But you have to beat those elite programs and get players and beat them because that's how you beat them on the court. Yeah, I think that's good.
We do. We mentioned this at the early part of this broadcast. Going out and beating some of the best teams in the country, and also for recruits, Illinois played one of the toughest schedules in college basketball, and I don't remember off the top of my head. They play either Arkansas or Alabama at the United Center next year, I believe. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I know Brad Underwood is not going to duck anybody. He's not going to run. This year, I think the outcome, if they put together a schedule like they did last year, I think the outcome may be a little bit different because they are older. I understand why you want some of the one and dones, and I think that looks great. It's good on the resume. And if guys who are legitimate NBA prospects, it's a good sell. But when you look at the teams that were old, other than Duke, because Duke just had every top player in the country, I think that's attractive. I would love to see Illinois play a team. I guarantee it next year, I don't see a team beating Illinois by 40 points again. Whether it be Houston or Purdue, I just don't. Yeah, Mike, I said it. I know you probably don't think so.
I hope not. I did not like that.
It was ugly, but I tell you, but then here's the deal, though. But the coaches are going to come out and say what we think. They're human beings. Do you know how mad and how frustrated they were? They're coaches. Can you imagine what that conference room was like between that whole staff about what that was like and what they knew the fans? It was the only game on TV. Every year he's tried to adjust and he's tried to put together a better roster, and I'm okay with that. Like I said to you, they're the guys that are going to be in that lineup that's going to play a ton of minutes. My thought, the only guy who I think who will be young, who's going to receive a lot of minutes, will be David Mikovic. I think he'll be the guy who's younger, and the freshmen will have to prove themselves. Don't get me wrong, but I think he's the one guy who will. But everybody else, you look at Kylan Boswell, he's young, but he's played 4 years. Andre's 22 years old, and the V6 are 22 years old. So it's a much older roster, and so you're not intimidated as much when you go to those places. Remember they played Ole Miss, they got knocked in the mouth and didn't fight back. This group, I think, could be a little bit different.
Yeah, I think that's the case.
By the way, that Alabama-Illinois game at the United Center is November 19th, I believe. November 19th.
So does Alabama. Okay.
Alabama at Illinois in Chicago on November 19th, I believe.
I would like to see a rematch against Duke. So Brad Underwood and Josh Whitman, if you're listening, I would like a rematch with Duke again. If you want to do your boy Ked a favor, that'll be it.
And we know that they really worry about doing Ked favors. But look, this game is going to be booked.
Get her done.
So I guess the other thing that comes to mind is how much of a raise should Brian Barnhart get for having to get all these names right?
Hell, what about us? Not just him, should be us too.
I had a hard enough time with Yakuchonis. I don't need to have it's oh my gosh, here we are, 5 different things, and then once you get a wrong pronunciation in your mind, it doesn't go away. So
Mike, you know what I want? My birthday's in July. I want to meet this DS guy. He is comical on these comments. This is a guy that I really want to meet.
Yeah. Look, he must be a pretty good basketball player that he needs 100,000 not to play. Of course, he doesn't really understand. I could easily get 250 for not playing with my talent level. But no, I think it's going to be interesting because you have a perception. Obviously, the foreign players are soft. And then because the foreign players are Caucasian, they're not very athletic. And those are the stereotypes that this Illinois team is going to have to fight all year long. I don't know a better way to say it.
You're going to get in trouble for saying that, man. I was going to say it, but you said it, not me.
I'm as Caucasian as you get, so I guess I can say
I thought you were going to say as Caucasian as me. Just kidding.
Yeah, but people struggle. Which one of us is which?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out. Alabama's a totally different team, right? They're not even... They have any guys back? I don't know. Who are there? They lost a lot from last year, right? So I'm trying to figure out what Illinois and Alabama is going to be a fun game, but Boy, Alabama's got a whole new. They lost Sears, right? They lost else they lose? They lost Sears. They lost Big Cliff, right? They lost who else? They lose? Man, they lost. I was just looking through their roster from this year. It's I don't know. I think that could be a fun game though. I think Illinois has a chance to win that one. That should be good.
Yeah, I'm certain that Illinois didn't put this roster together just to go. There's no way we win that game.
Yeah.
Not only that, but you know how, like we mentioned earlier, the Big Ten is going to be tough. It will be, I think, a lot tougher this year than it was last year.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm still not sold on. I know somebody else put that there. I'm still not sold on Michigan has the right mix yet. Maybe I'll be proven wrong, but ever since what's his face has left, they just haven't been able to put a full roster together that I've agreed with. Not that means anything.
Yeah, no, I think they got to get some. I think Michigan's got to get some better guards too, right?
That's what I'm saying. They've all when they're fantastic on the inside, they don't have any guards. When they go great on the guards, they don't have anybody on the inside. It's just it is what it is.
Yeah.
And
what's Michigan State? What about Michigan State? Somebody mentioned them. What do you think of them?
I don't. I'll be honest with you. I have learned a long time ago that whether you like Tom Izzo or you don't like Tom Izzo, don't throw dirt on his grave because he isn't in there.
I did it. I'm gonna tell you right now.
Like Caleb Glenn that they added. I think Caleb Glenn's a good player for them. Yeah. He's going to be good.
And he'll get the best out of him. That's why he's a great coach.
Yes, he is. That team was horrible at the beginning of the year. They couldn't put it in the ocean. And I'm talking shit like no other, thinking Michigan State's going to stink. And they just dominated. You cannot count him out. He's going to win. His teams are going to play hard. He runs a good system. Michigan State's going to be there. And I could stomach Michigan State to a certain degree. Purdue, yuck, but they're going to be good. They just are, and I'm really surprised. I'm really glad to see some of the West Coast schools like UCLA rising to the cream of the crop. I don't know. A lot of people talk about Iowa. I see Fedigator's comment. I think he's a good coach, but I just don't think Iowa's going to be in the upper half of the Big Ten. Do I think they're going to be improved? I really do. But you look at Illinois and Purdue right now, and I know you guys are teetering between Michigan and UCLA and Wisconsin. I really do think those teams are really good. And I think those teams, if they win enough games in non-conference and beat the right teams and get a good seed, the Big Ten can advance in the NCAA tournament again next year. And Michigan, flip a coin, but they have one hell of a basketball coach, and that's been proven.
Yeah. I can't go anything against that. Man, I think this team, this should be one of the more competitive Big Ten seasons. I think it'll be an exciting one. And I really think you've seen another job, whether you want to, I guess I credit the whole staff, Brad Underwood, obviously the man in control. Jeff Alexander has really developed this European connection, and of course, Orlando Antigua as well. So to me, this is just a huge win. I guess the final area that I'm curious on, I don't know that it's a priority, but what do we think is going to happen with the assistant coach position? Any thoughts?
I think they're going to fill it.
Yeah, that was one of the things on the.
I was told, Brad, you and I we're going to do it half. You get 4 days, I get 3 days. That's what I was told.
There you go. I'll take that. Can we get that salary? I'm in. No, I do think they're going to. I think they will add a person. I don't think it'll be too long. Sometime this month in May. At sometime in May, they will have a new assistant coach on board. And I think it'll be a guy who fits what Brad Underwood wants to do. I think they'll have somebody who has recruiting ties, I think, for sure, and someone who's adept at coaching. Yeah, I think they're going to be in a good place. And by the way, they also have an open recruiting period coming up in mid-May here. So they're actually going to coach we're going to go out and recruit some high school kids. I don't know if that happens anymore, but we're going to start doing it. One thing about this house settlement that's going to be interesting is how that entails recruiting high school kids, because if there really is a limit of, say, $6 million and then everything else is under the table, I think that the salaries will go down. I think that's why so many guys want to go in the portal. There'll still be under the table stuff going on, but I think that this $6 million will act as a faux salary cap, and then the high school kids aren't going to be as big a part of that. So they're going to get less. So it's going to be interesting to see where Illinois goes and how they recruit in 2026. I know they've got a bunch of kids that they're already in on that we'll be watching, whether it's in Memphis at the UIBL or at the Adidas in Council Bluffs, Iowa.
I do. I want to see them get somebody who has a lot of ties to high school as well. You don't want to forget about those kids, because if you look at Will Riley, he was another example of a player that came out of high school last year. So who that's going to be, I don't know, but I'm really interested in seeing who it's going to be. And Brad's always put together a staff, somebody that he trusts and who can recruit. So I'm assuming that's who it's going to be. And I know they want to lock that up. And we talked earlier. I just still, maybe I'm wrong, but I still don't think they're done. I just think there's that one more guy. They've been active in the portal. They got what they wanted. They filled some needs, and I think they have 11 scholarship players right now, I think. And not that you need all to fill all 15, but I just don't think they're done. I think they're really going to go for it. And I think when you look at this roster and the players, they want to play with great players, but you have to compete. You want to be on the floor, you got to go earn your spot. That's the one thing about this staff. You're not just going to go to be on the court because of who you are. You have to have some talent. And I do think this year, Brad, you know as well as I do, they're going to defend. That is going to be a point of emphasis for them this year.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. Now, Brad, did you know where you might be on those open weekends?
I think I don't know. I'm still looking at rosters, trying to figure out how it's going to roll, but I'll either be in Memphis or in Council Bluffs, Iowa. One of those two.
Good. I'll probably be in Memphis.
Yeah, I think that was the plan. You go to Memphis, I'll go either one or the other.
Council Bluffs not far from me.
No, you can run there, kid.
Yeah, because it's far, but it's not far. But I'll be at one or two of them. You can bet that this summer. So things are looking good. So I hope to be at one of those as well.
Sounds good.
That sounds good. So we'll be out there. Of course, generally we're trying to wear our IlliniGuys gear. So if you're not certain who we are, look at the label on the shirt. It's just not hard to figure out who we are as a general rule. But we'll be out there for people. Yes, it's still going at it.
What? Oh, I know. He's having a field day.
Didn't want the hammer playbook. Any final thoughts as we hit almost get to the hour mark maybe and wrap this up for folks? Nice crowd tonight. And of course, good news never gets quite as many as those big losses get. But we're certainly excited by having this roster look as good as it does. And it's only April 28th.
Yeah, no, I'm happy with this roster. I really like what they've done. If you recall last year, I was a big proponent of having some retention. You have to have some culture guys that stick around. And I think having Ivasic, Boswell, Rogers, three guys who can be leaders, who part in the culture, not to mention Jason Jackson or Jake Davis or Ben Humrickhouse. They have a lot of guys that stuck around. Then they throw in impact guys. Whether it's Merkovich, whether it's obviously Stojakovic is the impact, or Petrovic. They bring in guys, and Big Z too. I didn't even mention him, but they brought in some guys who can really contribute. And so they got a mix of young, they're very old, and they've got a lot of guys who are already bought in the culture. So I'm very excited with this roster. For me, the big question mark, I think defensively they can be good. They'll at least be solid, be a top 25 defensive team, which I think is the key for them. They can't fall into that lower range. They're going to be really good offensively. They're going to score. Question for me is, do they shoot it well enough? Will they shoot it well enough from three? If guys revert back to their career norms, then they probably will. If they don't, then that'll probably be similar to this year. We're hoping to get offensive rebounds.
If they do that, I hope they make adjustments and not launch so many threes, but I'm being more optimistic about this team. I'm just really excited. I've said it multiple times on Twitter, on the IlliniGuys message board. I am a huge fan of Andrej Stojakovic. That was the kid that I wanted. I mentioned the fact that I know Illinois fans were upset about Josh Dix, and as soon as Andre went in the portal, Josh Dix is I forgot who he was. I don't remember. I don't know when he came to Champaign or what it was about. I just think this kid's he's a gamer. And you think about how hard it is to average 18, 19 points in Division I basketball, and he did it on a really bad basketball team. I think he could potentially be one of the top 2 or 3 scorers in the Big Ten if things fall into place. And if he's able to knock down some of those threes that we know he's capable of. And I just really like his game. And I think today was really good news for Illinois fans. And it's good to receive some positive texts and feedback. And just think about all those times when on our message boards and Twitter, the coaches can't coach, they can't recruit. You're going to have a top 15 basketball team again, just like we told you were going to. It's not going to happen overnight. The coaches are really smart. They didn't just go take anybody. They wanted to make sure that it was the right fit, not just with the players, but the families. And we didn't mention Adam Miller. I heard rumor today he may be at Gonzaga. I'm not 100% sure. And there's a lot that went into that. But if it wasn't the right fit, it wasn't the right fit. And it doesn't mean that the coaches can't recruit. You look at this roster again, Brad Underwood and Matt Payne have been the most successful coaches in the Big Ten in the last 6-7 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And you throw in the new guys. We'll see how the new guys do. It's a tough league. And then we'll also see if Mr. Izzo can continue his upward climb, because he certainly looked fantastic this year. So, folks, we will be back obviously sometime later in the week. Of course, we have the IlliniGuys.com you can join and be a part of. You go in there and you've got a year for $99. I would highly recommend it. We don't break anything on here that we haven't talked about there. And you could certainly tell by Brad and Ked's nonchalance over the last few days that they weren't particularly worried, even if the Illini fan base was. That was something where one of the things that you found about Illini guys is we don't break or ruin it for a kid. When I say we, because I talked to Brad and Ked, but we may know about somebody committing, but you don't want to take that away from them. I know there's other places around town that'll break stuff so they can say, ooh, we're first. That's not what we're here for. And we try to keep our subscribers informed and also allow those kids their moment in the sun. So IlliniGuys.com, certainly join there. If you don't follow myself or Ked or Brad on Twitter, please go ahead and do that. If you even take a little bit of a time to go do that, it really helps us out a lot because it gets us greater reach and we can reach more Illini fans or Big Ten fans. If you could do that'd be great. And if you go to IlliniGuys.com on YouTube, go to that channel. You can also follow us there. I don't know why you'd want to see our faces, but if you are in for punishment, you can do that as well. So we have greatly enjoyed having everybody jump on here. Thank you so much, and we will be back. And until next time, go Illini.